And welcome back to another Sportsnaut interview. And today, joining us is New York Knicks beat reporter Steve Popper from Newsday. And Steve, the Knicks have been very busy this week. I know you've been very busy covering it all, signing players, making trades. They had the round one of the NBA draft last night. They selected a couple players in round one. So it's been a busy couple of days for you. Let's get into all of that now. Let's discuss some of that. Let's start first with the big trade. The Nova Knicks, as they're being called right now, at another former Wildcat, Mikal Bridges, making the move uptown to the Knicks. Before we get into what Bridges does for the Knicks on the court, I do want to talk about the compensation. It took a lot to get Bridges. They gave up a lot to get him. 4 unprotected round one picks, a protected another protected round one pick in 2025. Any concerns from you on how much they had to give up to get Bridges?
I really don't think so because look, this is a team that's been looking to be in this situation at contending, and I think they see their window is right now. The picks to me, the Knicks were picking at 24 and 25 entering the draft last night. The players you're getting there at where they think they're going to be for these next couple drafts, I just to me I don't have a problem with giving up the 26th pick next year, the 24th pick in 2027, that sort of thing. When you're looking down the road 29, 31, those could be problems. Those could be times where the franchise is in the lottery again or something. But that's not a problem for Tom Thibodeau, Jalen Brunson, Leon Rose right now.
Yeah.
They want to get guys who can help Jalen Brunson right now. And Mikal is one of those guys. He's part, as you say, the Nova Knicks. He's a guy who won a championship, is very close with them. And most of all, look, we can talk and joke about that, but he fits what they want. He is an elite wing defender, versatile, plays every game, and he has not missed a game in his NBA career. These are sort of things that Thibodeau values with the Knicks. So to me, I think this trade is sort of a no brainer, and I've kind of gone back and forth with some people who think they gave up a lot. I think the future is not the concern right now. The concern is right now during Jalen Brunson's window, building a team around him that can contend, and I think that they've done that right now.
Yeah. Now I know this move has a lot of Knicks fans excited. Does this make the Knicks the clear number 2 in the Eastern Conference, and maybe even do enough for them to really push the Celtics to compete for that Eastern Conference title?
Look, I talked to a lot of people in the league this year, and before the Knicks injuries sort of crippled them in the postseason, there were believers inside and outside the organization that this year they could have been a team or the team that could have pushed the Celtics. They were sort of built that way. If Anunoby was healthy, if Randall was healthy, with the Knicks, things that the Knicks could do defensively, adding a player like Bridges to me only provides more of that. He's a a guy who you can put on Jason Tatum, on Jalen Brown, on Derek White, on Drew Holiday. He's a guy that's sort of a Swiss Army knife defensively. And I think in Brooklyn he struggled a bit last season because he's not a number one offensive option. He's not the shot creator that he was sort of required to be there. I think back in his role that he was in Phoenix with the Knicks, kind of playing off of Brunson, I think it's going to be a huge boon for him for his career. Um, I do see them as a contender to the Celtics. Look, everything you put yourself in position and everything's got to fall right. Even for the Celtics, is Kristaps Porzingis healthy next year? Does Al Horford eventually show signs of his age? And the Knicks have the same questions, to be answered. Is Mitchell Robinson going to be healthy? Does Jalen Brunson stay healthy? So to me, you put yourself in position. I think they've done that.
Yeah. What was the buzz like, in the arena last night for the draft? I know, Knicks fans, rabid fan base with the news of Mikal Bridges, the excitement surrounding what we'll get to in just a second. They re-signed OG, but what are you hearing from the fan base with the trade for Bridges?
Look, it's not just last night. This is a town that when the Knicks are good, it is a basketball city.
Yep.
And the excitement this season, sort of is like nothing I've seen. I covered. I'm old enough that I covered back in '94 when they were in the finals, and when they played San Antonio in the finals. The when they're good and like this, not just good, but this was a likable team, sort of a little bit of an underdog, hardworking blue collar group. Um, I thought this year, all year long, it was such an amazing scene at the Garden. The craziness outside the Garden after every win. Um, it was disappointing the way it finished, but I think fans are sort of on board with this group and have high expectations for next year. Now, being in the draft last night in the arena, it's the worst. It's because the NBA crew kind of there can't they're not allowed to relay the trades that are happening. So, for example, when you get to pick number 24, they're hyping up that it's the New York and it's the Knicks pick, and it's we've already learned that the pick is going is going to has been traded, and so there's this whole hype thing going on, and they're asking about being in New York and they're playing New York music, and we all know that this guy is not coming to the Knicks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a strange atmosphere there. But I think just the every time a Knicks thing comes up there, I would say there was probably about 70%, 80% Knicks fans in the crowd there last night.
Yeah, yeah. To your point about the draft, I do think the NBA could do some tweaking to the way they produce their draft there, and then to the other point about the excitement and the expectations for the Knicks, you're right. It was a really great run for them, falling just short of the Eastern Conference Finals. There's going to be a lot of expectations on this team, and unfortunately, New York fans they can be very impatient. So I do wonder if things get off to a rocky start or don't go the way the fans want to see it go. We'll see. Hopefully, it doesn't get too nasty there. But before we get into some of the draft selections, I do want to kind of go back and talk about one of the players that the Knicks re-signed, one of their own, OG Anunoby. 5 years, $212 million. That's a big contract. The Knicks were very good with him in the lineup, 27-6 in the games that he played. But the problem was he missed 31 games, and I believe they were 14-17 in those games. So I just kind of want to get some of your thoughts on the decision to bring him back, what he brings to the team, and if there's any concerns with the health going forward.
Well, your last point first, there's absolutely concerns because he's got a history of this. And look, the Bridges move sort of provides a little bit of insurance, if he's out at all. He's had a history of not major injuries, but some minor deals that kind of, get him sitting out when maybe another guy might play. Not a great attribute to have for a Tom Thibodeau player, but I think he showed them enough. And look, I think this was a sort of a situation where this decision was made December 30th when they made the trade. Yeah. When you give up an RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, sort of building blocks of what you're doing, you're not letting him walk for nothing. The connections they have with CAA, one of his agents being Leon Rose's son. We've all kind of felt like that this was sort of in the works from the time that they made the deal, that these two sides knew they were going to come together. And I got indications at the start of when he opted out that he was never going to hit the open market, that they were going to get this done this week. I mean, you can say it's a lot of money for a role player. He's not going to be a number one on their team. He's not a number two on their team. But he is sort of that guy who makes it all work. When you saw him inserted in the lineup defensively, you really have to see him every day to see just how good and impactful he is defensively. He brought sort of everything together for the Knicks, and offensively, he just fits what Jalen Brunson, playing off of Brunson and Randall, he sort of fits what they do. He's a very quiet guy. He's not a big, guy you'll see, making headlines or advertisements in New York. But he just makes everything else work. $212 million is a lot of money to pay for that. And the Knicks are right now paying the cost for that because they're going to have a hard time getting the other pieces kind of in place that they want to, under the cap. It may cost them Isaiah Hartenstein. He did give them a little bit of a discount. He could have gotten more per year from another team and he could have gotten more per year from the Knicks. Basically took about a $30 million haircut on what he could have taken as a max. So I think they kind of found a common ground where they try and make it work. He's getting paid very, very well, and he's going to be a part of this. They actually threw in a couple, perks for him too: the trade kicker, player option. So he made out pretty well for a guy who didn't play much, but the impact you saw when he was with the team, I think, is just something that they couldn't pass on keeping as a part of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, the record versus when he was in the lineup versus not in the lineup, very hard to pass up, as you just mentioned. So let's get into the draft last night. The Knicks were very active in the draft as well. Go figure, right? They've had an active week. They kept it going in the draft. They traded one of their picks. They picked up another second-round pick. They did end up making 2 selections. Let's talk briefly about those 2 selections. They picked up a young kid out of France whose name I'm probably going to butcher, so I'll save that for you. And then they ended up taking another player as well, Dylan Jones. Just your quick rundown on your
they just so the machinations the Knicks do in the draft. This is the way it's gone during the entire Leon Rose tenure. They didn't take Dylan Jones. They moved that pick. What happened was they entered the night with 24 and 25, traded 24 for 26, and then shifted 26 out for 5 future second round picks.
Oh, okay.
So
I did fall asleep just before the Knicks pick, so I was doing some reading this morning on this. So apparently I missed some of that. Well, thanks for clarifying that. So tell us about the first pick anyhow.
Well, the interesting thing is the kid from France, who we'll just call him that because it's I don't know, whatever it is. But I think we have a year to learn it, because
one of the 5 or 6 kids that was drafted in the first round from France.
It's crazy. It really is amazing that this was really, such. It just shows you the way the international game has grown here.
Yes.
But so he's a promising offensive player. He's 18 years old. He played in a lower division, second league in France. To me, the move was made for the Knicks with this salary cap, as a big part of this. They can draft and stash him, keep him in Europe for another year, which he obviously would benefit from. Keep him off their books financially, which would be huge for the Knicks. But we talked to him after he was picked, and he said that he plans on playing here in America in the NBA this year. That said, I think that there's still time that this will come to an agreement where he winds up, maybe playing with the Knicks in the summer league and then spending another year overseas. It just makes sense. What the Knicks need to do financially right now to have an 18-year-old development project, on their books is not what they need. So what they did with the 26th pick, again, you're saving, I guess it saves you about $3 million. By doing what they did, they moved it to Oklahoma City for 5 future second rounders, all between 2025 and 2027. And what that does is it saves you the money now, and those are all non-guaranteed picks. They're assets you can use to, piece together in other deals. So it's sort of the method that the Knicks front office have done for years here, where they go into a draft and they're shifting up, shifting down. I don't think in the Leon Rose era they've gone into a draft and kept their picks in place where they are. They've shuttled around every single time.
Yeah, interesting. And of course, round 2 of the draft is on Thursday, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time. NBA free agency is just around the corner. The Knicks, as we've discussed, have been very active already. What moves still could they make? You mentioned one of their own players who they may be in jeopardy of not being able to bring back, Isaiah Hartenstein. What other holes could the Knicks look to fill here when free agency kicks off later this summer?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting. This is, for a team that's always in that star chase, they are not at this time. Their goals are Hartenstein, who I just have a hard time seeing how they're going to keep him financially. That may help another guy who I thought would be gone, but Precious Achiuwa is a restricted free agent of their own. Will come at a much lower price. I've heard talk about, around the league, maybe interest in maybe doing a sign and trade to move him off the books. But if you lose Hartenstein, you've got to replace that center position. You've got Mitchell Robinson coming back from injury. you need a guy who is a useful piece as a backup. It could be Achua. It could be somebody they take at number 38 or 51 in the draft today. There are still some intriguing big men. Kyle Filipowski from Duke is still available. I think that, that working around the edges, the fringes, is what the Knicks are going to be doing right now. They have very little money on even hard capped. They're going to be like at vet minimum numbers. If they can't keep Achua or Hartenstein, if they don't find somebody in the draft, I think they're going to be looking for a big man on a veteran minimum deal, maybe a backup point guard. They love Deuce McBride, but he's not really an orchestrator to the offense with that second unit. They'd like a guy who can kind of handle that role. I would never rule out another Villanova guy coming back.
Yeah.
Ryan Arcidiacono is a favorite of Thibodeau. He's a great 15th man who sort of helps on the bench and will be a coach someday. There's possibly Kyle Lowry. I think the Sixers will pay him, but there's always been interest. Thibodeau loves him. He's another Villanova guy who could be here. So I think it'll be interesting, but the low cost alternatives this time.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Philadelphia Eagles going after all the Georgia football players in the NFL. The Knicks are taking a page out of that playbook there, bringing on all these Villanova guys. Not a bad recipe for success. Villanova's had a pretty good program the last few years.
Absolutely.
So. All right, everybody. Steve Popper. You can follow Steve on X at Steve Popper. Excitement's at an all-time high for Knicks fans right now. And Steve, you'll be covering it all. We'll be following you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
You got it. Thanks for having me anytime.